That one phrase changed my business. He said, we started a partnership with an ancillary uh, accounting firm that handles also like real estate transactions, especially and also temporary homes, because sometimes these people need to move out of their house during the renovations. And he said, before you gave us the training session, the first, if somebody said, well, can you provide us, let's say, temporary housing, they would have said no, okay, but nobody likes to hear no, but. Instead now, they say, oh, I can help you. Do you just mind if I ask you a few questions? Tell me your name, tell me your, telephone number, email address, and I'm going to have somebody call you back. They said, absolutely, positively, it changed your business.
Your business's success depends on relationships, relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Richard Shapiro. Richard founded TCFCR in 1988 to provide customized research, training, and consulting to Fortune 1000 companies wanting to generate a higher percentage of repeat customers and increase market share from existing accounts. Before founding TCFCR, Richard spent 18 years with ADP, including as Vice President of Customer Satisfaction and Client Retention. He created and managed the National Account Program and was General Manager of the company's largest region. During Richard's tenure at ADP, sales rose from $400 million to more than $4 billion, making the company one of the most profitable global service enterprises. Richard has authored 2 books, The Welcomer Edge, Unlocking the Secrets to Repeat Business, and The Endangered Customer, 8 Steps to Guarantee Repeat Business. Congrats on growing ADP and your 2 books, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you, Karl, for that introduction, and I welcome the opportunity to be on the podcast today. Very excited about it.
Awesome. So I can tell from the 2 book titles and your exceptional experience at ADP that you're an expert at repeat business. So how did you get so much experience on getting repeat customers?
Sure, Karl. I appreciate the question. Well, I get that question a lot. Like, how did you first learn about customer experience, building relationships, loyalty, repeat business? Well, it's a pretty easy story to tell. I was very fortunate when I was growing up, about 8 or 9 years old. My father owned a small men's retail clothing store in New Jersey. And every Saturday, my friends would be playing stickball, touch football, or soccer. But where was little Richie Shapiro? Little Richie Shapiro could not play any of those games on a Saturday because he got to go to work with his dad. So every Saturday, I got dressed in a suit, drove to work with my father, and was in the store all day. And my job was being the cashier. And in those days, actually, you were collecting like real money, not credit cards. And the beauty of being the cashier is that it was a small store, but I could see every interaction that my father made with customers. And I learned a lot of things from my customers, but 3 specific things that I think would help any company are: number 1, my father taught me that customers are people first, customer second. I'll repeat that. My father taught me that customers are people first, customer second. The second thing my father taught me was to welcome everybody into the store just like we would welcome them into their home. And in any business, whether it's a physical business or an online business, it's important to think of your business or site as a home and to make sure everybody feels welcome. And the last thing is he taught me the importance of and how to create an emotional bond from each customer from day one. And my dad died many years ago, but I know he'd be very happy that I'm carrying out his legacy today.
Wow, those are 3 really great lessons from working with your dad on Saturdays. And the helping people feel welcome and feeling like you are connecting with them as a person first and a customer second is such a big difference. And I think how a lot of people feel with companies they interact with today, where they get a lot of marketing and ads that are not really connecting with them as a human to human level. They're just about trying to close a deal and make a transaction. And it's such a huge difference when it comes to making a first impression or building a relationship.
No, absolutely. No, it's important to find out about the person. Matter of fact, one of the things I learned in doing a lot of research, that the people that are most helpful in, let's say, a retail environment or any kind of service environment, usually have a high degree of curiosity. And it makes sense because they're curious about people. And nobody's beamed into a website or beamed into a store or beamed into a bank or beamed into a medical office to see a doctor. There's a history that happened before, and there's a history that's going to happen afterwards, and then you have during the interaction. So it's really important to find out what led up to that interaction in the first place.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the term curiosity, because on the 4th episode of the show, I was talking with a guy who does B2B sales, and he said his success comes from being curious and getting to know people and asking more questions, open-ended questions about who they are and what they were doing before and what they're like, what their weekend was like, and all these things have nothing to do technically with closing a sale, but it's about building a bigger relationship and knowing what their experience has been like leading up to the interaction and what they're going to be doing afterwards. Like you said, that just shows a deeper respect than just what's in someone's wallet.
No, absolutely. Listen, it's all about building a connection, and you can't really build the connection unless you find out about that person. So, if you can find out if they had a life, just in conversation, it's not really asking personal questions, but, if they say my daughter's getting married, or, or aunt just, my niece just had a baby, then you can have, I just, my friend had a baby. What are you looking for? I know that, there's all kinds of choices out there, but I can help you make the right choice.
Yeah. And I think it leads to something else you mentioned before we started recording that was, I really found noteworthy, was that phrase you just used, if I can help you with X. And so tell me more about that, the power of that phrase when it comes to building business relationships.
Sure. Thank you, Karl. So what I've learned over the years is that people get very frustrated when they finally speak to a person and that person can't help you. They say, well, you have to speak to so-and-so, here's their number. It might have taken them 10 minutes to finally get to you, and now, they're at 0.0 again. So I've trained all our clients to make sure that if it's a phone interaction or a face-to-face interaction, it doesn't matter. But no matter what the customer or prospective customer is asking you, always say, I can help you with it. It's an I can statement. But then you go into, I can help you with that, but do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And because nobody likes to be asked questions, maybe, unless, you get kind of permission. Everybody's going to say yes. If they don't say yes, there's probably something wrong with them. So, and I'll give you an actual live or an example for one of our clients. One of our clients was a small law firm, and they handled like insurance claims for property damage, especially during I live in Florida, so hurricanes, etc. And he said, you know what, that one phrase changed my business. He said, we started a partnership with an ancillary accounting firm that handles also like real estate transactions, especially and also temporary homes, because sometimes these people need to move out of their house during the renovations. And he said, before you gave us the training session, if somebody said, well, can you provide us, let's say, temporary housing, they would have said no, okay, but nobody likes to hear no but. Instead now, they say, oh, I can help you. Do you just mind if I ask you a few questions? Tell me your name, tell me your telephone number, email address, and I'm going to have somebody call you back. They said absolutely, positively, it changed their business. So people like to feel that whoever they're talking to is going to take personal responsibility for solving their issue or answering their question.
I can already feel how different my response was just hearing that story of when you hear the no but versus I can help you, can I ask you a few questions. Just psychologically for the customer, how big a paradigm shift that is. And I'd imagine, do you have like, I imagine like what was kind of the impact it had for this client's business when it comes to their growth or like retention, that sort of stuff?
You know, I don't know exactly what the percentage was, but he made a big point that it changed his business. So I don't know if it grew it by 50% or 20%, but it was a significant change.
I'd imagine it's also helps the employees feel better because when, especially if you're working with someone who really needs your help, just gonna having like shutting down their progress must be kind of draining and frustrating. But if you're able to help people and even just referring them to one of your partners, like you're talking about with this law firm and the getting the temporary housing, that must do a lot to boost kind of workplace morale as well.
No, absolutely. You know, I wrote 2 books. One was the first one was The Welcomer Edge, Unlocking the Secrets to Repeat Business. And I actually came up with 4 different categories. And it's kind of a curse because once I tell you the 4, you'll never have an interaction where you don't think, oh, which of the 4 is it is, but it'll be pretty obvious. But my father was a welcomer. My father welcomed everybody into the store. And those people are naturally curious. And I've also researched that they have a history, maybe when they were younger, of being babysitters or coaches or tutors. They just have that innate helpness. The second one are the robots that say all the right things, but there's no real feeling behind it. They know the script, but they don't really have the feeling. The third are the indifferents. They couldn't care whether they ever spoke to you again or not. And the fourth one are hostiles, which are out there, who are just mean and nasty. Years ago, my wife, and it's in my book, went to the Museum of Natural History in New York. And at that time, I think it was the start of COVID. And the only person that you actually interacted with was at the welcome desk. And everybody, the way the tickets worked, had to go to this person first. And this person was so mean that people were holding hands online. They were dreading having an interaction with her, you know?
Wow.
Now, why would that be the only person that you interact with? It doesn't make sense. So those are hostiles. But anyway, the good news, a couple of things. The good news is that actually robots, because they want to do a good job in a lot of cases, can actually be taught to be welcomers. It's not natural to them, but they can be taught to ask the right questions and things like that. So, and to your point about how do they feel, welcomers do feel good because they're helping people and they like to help people and they find out new things. And usually they're very, very happy. What can kill a welcomer is a hostile boss. I don't care how good the welcomer is, over time, you can tear that welcomer down and say, that's not important. Don't spend so much time with the customer. You know, you're just here to do your job. Those kinds of things will destroy a welcomer and kind of, they'll never be hostile, but they certainly could be end up being indifferent. And probably they're going to end up hopefully getting another job.
Yeah, it's I can definitely see that the welcomer employees not wanting to work for a hostile boss for very long because of the conflict there. And I can see how it seems like from a business, the more welcomers you can have on your team or the more robots you can turn into welcomers, the better your client experience is going to be and the more your business is going to thrive because those positive experiences lead to better word of mouth and better reviews and more repeat business, which again, as pretty much anyone who's taken an MBA course can tell you, it's easier to make money from repeat business than new clients. So if you're able to improve the client experience by having more welcomers on your team, the better your business is going to do.
No, absolutely. And you know, nobody goes into a store at a mall or goes into a doctor's office or goes on a website, unless there's a reason why they're there. Okay. And these days there's so much competition. So many businesses lose customers just by that initial interaction. If you call a law office and that person is not really welcoming, or you don't feel friendly, that it's going to be good. I mean, if you're calling a law office, maybe you're being sued or something, or you want to sue, or you want to do something, you have to feel comfortable. And that first person who answers that phone call, it's critical. As a matter of fact, I always say, if anybody owns a business that's a physical business, it should never go to a machine. It should always go to a person. Because if someone's taking the time to actually pick up the phone and call, it should go to a person. And I actually did a mystery shopper for someone who, it was a very expensive jewelry store in New York, and their average bracelets are like $20,000 or $30,000, and he wanted me to do like a mystery shop. So I called the store the day before, and I said, I'm coming into town, and I wanted to know what your hours were. That's all I said. And they just gave me the hours, and that was it. Well, they get an F for that interaction. They should have asked, or they should have said, that's so wonderful. When are you coming in? My name is Joan. I'll be able to help you. Absolutely, positively. If the person gave their name and asked when they were going to be there and what they were looking for in advance, so maybe they can think about it, it's almost 100% that person is going to go into the store tomorrow. If you just answer with yes or no questions, even on whatever kind of retailer, I don't care if it's a sports shop or a high-end retailer, that's going to make the difference whether that person actually comes and visits your business.
And I'd imagine the same sort of stuff can be applied to like online or kind of digital communications, or like on the phone. If you're calling a digital business, somewhere where you're doing software where it's not like a brick and mortar business that you walk into, but still having those warm interactions, that welcoming effect is a big difference maker.
Yes, it's true, but it doesn't have to be, a person, on an online site. But we also, as part of our business, evaluate what kind of communication you're sending to customers. Like, frankly, you should never send a customer an email that says, do not respond to this email. It just doesn't make sense. All right. What's the difference if they just set up their technology? So if someone has a question, they can respond and someone can answer it to the company. Never send out an email that says, do not respond to this email. It just doesn't make sense. So even in an online environment, there's a lot of things that you can do to make the customer feel welcome. And frankly, we are in the survey business. We're in the research business, and we're also consultants. But I hate when I go on a website, it's only 5 seconds and they pop up a screen. Are you satisfied? Give me feedback. That just doesn't make sense. It happens all the time. Even the discount doesn't necessarily make sense at that second. You don't know, you haven't seen anything. Okay. I mean, they want to collect the email. I understand that's important, but I think they could wait a few seconds before they actually ask for it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you get so used to the pop-ups, and like your muscle memory is go to a site, pause for 2 seconds, close the pop-up when it pops up, and then move on to the rest of the site, or just leave because you're annoyed. That's a bad sign that the sites you're going to are having those pop-ups too soon, and whatever they're doing you haven't had the chance to look around enough before they're already asking you for something, and the timing's totally off.
Yeah, the time. Listen, another thing that has to do with surveys too, but so many times, a technician might come to your house to fix something, and literally the second they walk out, you get a survey because they know the technician just logged out. That doesn't make sense. You don't know whether whatever they did worked or not worked. You have to, whenever there's a survey, you have to time it right so that the customer really can experience whatever the situation was. And a lot of times that takes hours or sometimes days before they really know if something worked or not.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And it just shows how many of the difference between creating repeat business and driving away repeat business is not just one big monolithic change, but a lot of little things over multiple touch points that companies need to be aware of and all these little tweaks compound together to make an amazing customer experience that leads to repeat business, or a bunch of little irritants that eventually drive people away. And it's stuff that most leaders probably overlook or undervalue the impact that these little things are having on their bottom line because they're inadvertently communicating the wrong message to customers.
Right. No, absolutely. And, one of the things, I do have a knack or an expertise for breaking concepts into, components. And a lot of people say, well, we need to improve the customer experience, but what does that really mean? Put a smile on your face, answer the phones more quickly? No. Yes, part of that might be. But I create these 8 steps, which are make me feel welcome, give me your full attention, answer more than my question, know your stuff, don't tell me no, which is the only negative one, invite me to return, show me I matter, and surprise me in good ways. And those 8 steps will guarantee almost that you get repeat business. And the don't tell me no, by the way, that is the biggest killer of loyalty. When you say no to a customer, basically you're saying you don't want to do business with them anymore. Now, sometimes you do have to say no, but try not to say no on the spot, okay? Because a lot of times, if someone goes back to their supervisor, or maybe it's a good idea and they go back to their next staff meeting and discuss it, it could end up being a yes. So it's really important never to say no, especially to a loyal customer. The loyalty will, just go out the window with that. Another thing that's really important is that all my steps are tied into human emotions. And just to think about the first one, when you make me feel welcome, that's tied into hope. As I keep on saying, no one goes into a store or a medical office or a library unless they're hoping something can happen. And when you say, I can help you with that, that fulfills that hope. If you don't say something like that, it can destroy the hope within 2 minutes. So the book has a lot of good points, and they are tied into human emotions. So, if your readers are interested, it's called, once again, The Endangered Customer, 8 Steps to Guarantee Repeat Business.
Love it. Well, I think that's a great point to kind of wrap this up. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Richard. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Richard, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.
Thank you, Karl.